Abdullah, thank you very much for joining us today. You honor us with your presence, and I can imagine it is a very, very busy time for you, and so we really appreciate you being here today. Your country continue to rebuild. But I would be remiss if I didn't start off with a question. Maybe you can update us on the latest developments in the north related to the city of Kunduz. We saw earlier today reports that the government had retaken the city, and we'd just love to get an update from you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick, and thank you, Matthew. And Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for providing this opportunity. I may start with the Kunduz. It was 72 hours ago when Taliban launched an attack on that province in Afghanistan and managed to infiltrate the city and then take over. Though the National Army, which was based there, the bases were there, but the rest of the city departments, governor housing, the other areas were overrun by the Taliban. And last night, our forces relaunched an offensive in order to take Kunduz back, and now Kunduz is under the control of the government forces at the moment. In the operation is ongoing operation. Still, there are some pockets of Taliban here and there in the city, which are firing at the forces, but the city as a whole has been liberated once again. Kunduz was an important city, but in this offensive of Taliban was expected, but we have to do the investigation afterwards, that what happened, where was the neglect, what was the shortcomings, that they managed that quickly to overrun that city. But hopefully this recent operation by our forces will lead to full liberation of that province, and that will be a very good news for the people of that province.
Does it worry you that this may be the trend of start of a worrying trend with the Taliban advance, or are you confident that this was a sort of a one-off anomaly?
In the past 12 months since formation of the unity government, different parts of the country has been under attack by the Taliban. In one or two occasions, they managed to capture districts, and then they lost it back. This was a significant development, but at the same time, the fact that it has been recovered, and we have to study it, what happened and what led to this.
So, sir, I want to take just a moment to talk a little bit further about the Taliban. When you were a candidate, you talked about the need to have an open door to negotiations in some form with the Taliban. You also talked about the need for the government to be coming more from a position of strength. Since becoming chief executive, what have you learned, and really what lessons have come?
That has been the policy of the unity government, President Ghani and myself and the government as a whole, to leave the door open for talks and negotiations with the Taliban. And we did so. And after a few rounds of official and unofficial talks, under the name of the leader of Taliban, whose representatives were around those tables, talking to us, we learned that that leader was dead already like 2 years back. So that was quite a significant development and loss of trust. And then after that development, so it was kept secret, the news of the death of the leader, and the people were coming around the table and representing themselves as if they were representing that leader of Taliban, late leader of Taliban. So that was like a sort of crossroad. And that was a big lesson for us, which was not expected from that point onward. While the principle of keeping the door open will remain as such, and also as a result of the revelation of the death of their leader, there are divisions, and there are groups amongst the Taliban which have contacted us, and we have maintained those contacts with them. but the overall strategy needs a review.
Chief Executive, if you could talk a little bit about how you've been involved in Afghan politics for a very long time and were foreign minister for a long time, and since 2001, the relationship with the United States has evolved. Could you tell us a little bit about how you view the relationship today, what's right about it, what's wrong about it, what needs to be fixed?
What was happening before 2001, there were Taliban in some parts of the country, in most parts of the country, and there was the resistance against the Taliban in the government, which was representing that resistance against Taliban. And I was, at that time also, between 1997 to 2001, I was Deputy Foreign Minister or Acting Minister of Foreign Affairs, they represented the resistance against the Taliban in the official government at that time. The areas of Afghanistan which was under Taliban rule, today we hear about the destruction of relics in Syria and other parts in Iraq by the ISIL. The first of such historic monuments which was destroyed, it was destroyed by Taliban in 1997 in Bamiyan, which was these 2,000-old Buddha's statues in central Afghanistan, which was remnants of the Buddhic culture. So that is on the cultural side, but on the civilian side and ruling side, more or less the same atrocities that we hear today committed by the ISIS, Daesh, the Taliban in related terrorist organizations were doing that. Then came September 11th. September the 9th, the leader of the resistance, which I had started working with him from 80s in the resistance against the Soviets, in the jihad against the Soviets, late Ahmad Shah Massoud. September the 9th, 2001, he was assassinated by two terrorists in a suicidal act. That was the first incident. Then September 11th took place. And then the United States and the international community got engaged in Afghanistan. Since then, this country, as well as many countries around the world in our neighborhood, in our region, have been helping Afghanistan in security as well as developmental side. As a result of which, a lot has changed in positive way for the people of Afghanistan in terms of education, health services, infrastructure, issues of governance, the role of the private sector, which was sort of non-existent, except for the traditional role that the private sector had, which the country is entrepreneurial in trade-based. The economy is agriculture and trade-based. It has been like that for centuries. But because of those disruptions of the war, things have changed. And communist regime was ruling over Afghanistan for a decade during the Soviet occupation of the country. Then there was a new opening. There was a new opportunity. But at the same time, insecurity, one way or another, continued. And today, security is the main challenge. At the same time, there are lots of developments which has taken place. And the country is a potentially rich country in terms of its natural resources, in terms of the location of the country, which provides connectivity for trade, transit, and transit of goods in energy between Central Asia and South Asia. Also the country started stepping in the democratic path. And the United States made lots of sacrifices alongside the people of Afghanistan, which in a lot of contributions, which our people are grateful to all friends of Afghanistan who helped us. Today, briefly, while there are lots of achievements, at the same time challenges and opportunities, we are still not in the status of self-reliance in terms of security or or economic situation. We are in need, but with a clear path of in roadmap, how to become self-reliant. That is like a very general description of the situation as of now.
Talk a little bit about what it was like to form a government with a political opponent. I mean, it was a great statement of democracy. Talk a little bit about what that's been like, what the working relationship has been like.
Nevertheless, the elections in 2014 were contentious and very sort of strongly contested, as well as contested results. That's the background, and in fact, it went to the second round. The second round was even more contentious. But for the sake of the interest of the country, both President Ghani and myself, we decided to form a unity government. In there as well, the role of our US partners to facilitate the environment, to facilitate the ground for formation of the unity government, that was critical and crucial. It is almost a year, just 1 or 2 days past 1 year since the formation of the unity government. We started perhaps a little bit slow at the beginning because this was the first experience for Afghans to form a unity government. And also perhaps in our region, we didn't have an example of unity governments as such. So things started a little bit slow, but now it is functioning and we are working together based on the interest of the country, and we believe that we both have put the interest of the country ahead of us and working together for the interest of the country with all the challenges of governance that as you can imagine, which exist.
But can you, from a governmental perspective, this audience here is about 70% private sector. Can you talk a little bit, because I think what they would like to understand from looking at Afghanistan as a place to invest potentially, what are you doing to curb corruption in Afghanistan?
Unfortunately, what we inherited as unity government, it was a corrupt system, very deep-rooted corruption at different layers, and it had become like sort of rule rather than exception. First of all, certain legislative reforms were needed. Institutional reforms were needed, which started and we initiated legislative as well as institutional reforms. And also policy of no tolerance towards corruption. In dealing with the issues of corruption, big one, regardless of the risks that it involved. That's how we started. It will be highly exaggerated if anybody announce any country corruption-free, but I would say in dealing with corruption, we are in the right path. It has its own challenges and political consequences and everything that comes with it. Insecurity also, insecure environment also adds to that, and the issue of narcotics has been one of the main elements and factors behind corruption and corrupting the system. But we have taken decisions in regards to the corrupt officials, and certain measures are underway, of course, but the essence of it is no tolerance rather than accepting it as a norm.
Just
the political will is there.
Of course. To continue on the on Matt's theme here of how the private sector can interact best to help rebuild Afghanistan. As Matt said, the audience here is mostly from the private sector, including many leaders of large global companies. What's your message to them about why they should come and invest in Afghanistan?
Oh, it's a very rare opportunity for investment. First, in many shapes of it. Public-private partnership as far as infrastructure in energy is concerned. our natural resources, transport sector. Afghanistan being a landlocked, it's not an advantage, but at the same time, it can serve as a bridge between different parts. I mentioned Central Asia and South Asia, which those countries surrounding Afghanistan are connected with through railways and have connections to the ports, seaports. It is only the issue of connectivity with Afghanistan that provides big opportunities, and also transport of energy, electricity. So the opportunity is there. The security is considered as an impediment, but start looking at the opportunities and finding and working ways. And the laws of the country has been changed, which are business friendly and enabling environment for business is something that we are focused. There was a little bit of lull in that sense because of the security transition which was about to take place, which was the withdrawal of the international troops from Afghanistan. In the political transition, which was a lengthy one, that has affected the way that the country and the opportunities there are being looked at. But the legislative base is there, the licensing and which was a challenge at that time have been made very easy, and we are working with our partners as we speak. Perhaps that meeting concluded yesterday, our time. For 2 days in Dubai, there was a conference on using how to use these huge infrastructures, these bases, airports which were there, which has all the facilities, electricity, water, roads, hotels, cool storage, residential area, and in vast areas of the country, which is not in our capacity to keep it as such, and we didn't need those bases. Those were bases which were for 150,000 international troops there. There is a conference there in Dubai, which has been concluded by now, how to bring the investors there to seize this as an opportunity. Agro-business is a big opportunity in Afghanistan, and there are good examples of public-private partnership in the construction field. In spite of all the challenges, security challenges, people of Afghanistan have invested in construction in terms of billions of dollars. That is, the estimation is that $10 billion perhaps from the people. And the same applies to other areas which the role of private sector has been welcomed. And what helps it, the entrepreneurial nature of the Afghan people, very easily they find their way and make things good for themselves as well as for the country.
Mr. Chief Executive, I want to take a question that came in from the audience. Could you comment a little bit about the current relationship between Pakistan and Afghanistan?
After that revelation of the news of the death of Mullah Omar, it's a bit contentious, but as a neighboring country, we want good relations and brotherly and friendly relations with all the neighboring countries, including Pakistan, and there have been some efforts. Since those negotiations were facilitated by Pakistan, and then we thought that they knew already that that gentleman was dead for 2 years, and we were not informed about it. When I mentioned earlier that loss of trust became a big issue for us after that. And if we look at the opportunities which are there before us, it is we can turn it into a win-win situation for everybody. where every country's legitimate interest is preserved, at the same time parallel to our shared interest for stability as well as progress, prosperity. The Central Asia is in need of goods and also full of energy resources. South Asia is in need of energy. TAPI is one of those programs. In between, in the past 15 years, there are a lot of venues that regional cooperation is the theme, the core theme in it. And groundwork is being done in order to promote regional cooperation. But nevertheless, sometimes issues come out which makes it difficult, but the future is and has to be the future of cooperation and friendly relations.
I think we have time for one more question, and I'd just like to make it a simple one, which is, as you look over the coming weeks and months and years, what are you most hopeful about as it relates to your country and its prospects and the region, and what frightens you the most, or what are you most apprehensive about?
Still this radical groups and terrorist groups and violence and radicalism is the main challenge in our region. That is a challenge that has prevented that region as a whole, Afghanistan included, to utilize the huge opportunities which have been there. And what makes me more hopeful, the energy in the younger generation, in the forward-looking younger generation throughout the region, men and women, which want to change their world. That is the best promise.
Mr. Chief Executive, I want to thank you so much for taking your time. You stayed longer than you were intending to here in New York to speak before the Concordia community. Thank you for coming, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.